I don't know where else to turn, and maybe this is just my way of venting, but I'm at a loss. My name's Mike, and I'm 34. Been married to my wife, Jessica, for about 6 years now. We got a pretty good life, or at least I thought we did. Nothing fancy, but we got a decent house, 2 dogs, and what seemed like a solid, if not perfect, marriage. Things started feeling off maybe 3 or 4 months ago. At first, I chalked it up to work stress. Just got a promotion, which meant longer hours at the office. She's in marketing, and she's always been really ambitious about her career. I was proud of her, you know? But then she started coming home later and later. She'd always have some excuse like work drinks with the team or client meetings running over. The thing is, she's always been social, so I didn't think much of it. But after a while, it started getting to me. She wasn't just coming home late. She was being weird about her phone, too. She'd never been the type to hide anything, but suddenly, she was keeping her phone face down and taking it with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. I started getting this gut feeling something wasn't right, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe I was just being paranoid, right? I mean, she's my wife. We've always been honest with each other. At least that's what I kept telling myself. The thing about red flags is that they don't always come waving right in your face. Sometimes they're small, like whispers in the back of your mind. Easy to ignore if you're determined not to see them. That's what it was like at first. A bunch of little things that I brushed off because, well, I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. Jessica wasn't just staying late at work anymore. She started being weird at home, too. Before, she'd always talk to me about her day. She used to be full of stories about her coworkers, the drama of office politics, or some project she was excited about. But lately, there was none of that. It was like pulling teeth just to get her to talk. When I'd ask her about work, she'd shrug it off, saying it was the same old stuff, or that she was too tired to get into it. I tried to give her space. Everyone gets burnt out, right? But it felt like we were drifting. We used to be close, we had date nights, inside jokes, and even though the sex wasn't as frequent as it used to be, when we did have it, it was still good. Or at least, I thought it was. But suddenly, even that part of our relationship felt different. Jess started making excuses about being too tired or not in the mood. It didn't feel like a normal thing. It felt like she was avoiding me. I'd try to initiate, and she'd just turn over and say something like, "Not tonight, Mike. I've got a headache," or, "I'm just so stressed from work." I was starting to wonder if I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't being supportive enough, or maybe I wasn't doing enough around the house. I started overcompensating, doing more chores, trying to be extra sweet, giving her more space when she said she needed it. But none of it seemed to change anything. If anything, she seemed to pull away more. The tension between us felt like it was growing, but I kept telling myself it was just a rough patch. Every couple has them, right? That's what I kept repeating to myself every night as I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering what had changed that I didn't go looking for it. I wasn't snooping or trying to catch her in a lie. But sometimes the universe just shoves the truth in your face, whether you're ready for it or not. It was a Saturday, and Jess was out with her friends, or so she said. She was doing her usual vague, "Oh, it's just a girls' day out" thing, which had become more frequent over the past month. Normally, I'd just stay home, play video games, maybe grab a beer with my buddy Dan. But for some reason, this particular Saturday, I decided to do something productive and clean out the garage. We've been talking about doing it for months, so I figured it might score me some points with Jess. While I was out there sorting through old boxes, her phone dinged from the kitchen counter. She must have left it behind. That never happened. I mean, never. Jess was glued to that thing. It was like an extension of her hand. I didn't think much of it at first, but then it dinged again. And again. Something inside me told me to check it. I know, you're not supposed to go through your spouse's phone. Trust and all that. But trust only goes so far when your gut is screaming at you that something's wrong. So, I picked it up. The screen lit up, showing a message from someone named E. Just the initial. No last name, no picture. The message preview was innocuous enough. Had a great time last night. Can't stop thinking about you. My stomach dropped. What the hell? Great time last night? Jess told me she was working late. I had a million thoughts racing through my head, but they all led back to the same place. She was lying to me. I unlocked her phone. It was easy. I knew her passcode. I didn't hesitate. I scrolled through the messages with this person, and what I found made my blood run cold. There were dozens of messages, some flirtatious, others straight up sexual. I saw her talking about how much she missed his body and couldn't wait to see him again. It was like a punch to the gut. Turns out, work late was code for having sex with someone else. I don't remember how long I stood there, reading those messages over and over, my hands shaking. My whole body felt numb, like I wasn't even in my own skin. I knew I should stop, but I couldn't. I kept scrolling, looking for more proof, as if what I'd already seen wasn't enough, that I didn't plan some big dramatic showdown. I wish I could say I had the patience or calm to wait for the right moment, but I didn't. Jess came home that night, around 8 or so, acting like everything was normal. She walked into the house, tossed her keys on the counter, and asked, "What's for dinner?" like nothing had happened. I just stared at her. My heart was racing, my mind spinning, trying to figure out how to even start. "Who's he?" I blurted out, my voice sharper than I intended. Jess froze. For a split second, I saw it, the flicker of panic in her eyes. She recovered quickly, though, putting on this confused, innocent face. "What are you talking about?" I held up her phone. "I saw the messages, Jess. Don't play dumb with me." Her face hardened, like a switch flipped. "You went through my phone? What the hell, Mike? That's such a violation of privacy." I couldn't believe it. She was turning it around on me. "Seriously? That's what you're going with? I catch you sexting some guy, and your first reaction is to get mad at me." She crossed her arms, her whole body language defensive. "You shouldn't have gone through my phone, Mike. It's not what you think." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, really? It's not what I think? Because it sure as hell looks like you've been screwing someone else behind my back." Jess's face twisted into something ugly. "Well, maybe if you weren't so damn boring all the time, I wouldn't have to look for excitement elsewhere." That hit me like a slap across the face. I felt the wind knocked out of me. All the anger, all the hurt, it came crashing down, and I just stood there speechless. I couldn't believe what she was saying. After everything we'd been through, all the years together, this is what it had come to? Jess didn't even seem sorry. She just stood there, glaring at me like I was the problem, like I was the one who had done something wrong. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Jess stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her, while I sat on the couch in the dark, trying to process everything. It felt like my whole world had been turned upside down in a matter of minutes. I kept replaying the confrontation over and over in my head. Her words echoed in my mind. "Maybe if you weren't so boring." Was that what she really thought of me? After 6 years of marriage, was I just some dull, lifeless guy to her? I felt this crushing weight on my chest, like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt tight. All I could do was sit there in silence, feeling like I was coming apart at the seams. I thought about the messages I'd read on her phone, the way she talked to this guy, how she'd lied to me so easily. It was like she was a stranger. The woman I married, the woman I thought I knew inside and out, was gone. When the sun came up, I was still sitting there, staring at the wall. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could forgive her, or if I even wanted to try. All I knew was that the life I thought I had was over. The next morning, Jess acted like nothing happened. She walked into the kitchen, making coffee like it was just another day. When I tried to talk to her about the night before, she brushed me off. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Mike." "It was just some harmless flirting," she said, not even looking me in the eye. Harmless flirting? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You call having sex with someone else harmless flirting? Are you serious right now?" She sighed like she was annoyed I was even bringing it up. "I told you it didn't mean anything. It's not like I love him or anything." I felt my blood boiling. "Then why, Jess? Why do it at all?" She shrugged, like it wasn't a big deal. "I don't know. I was bored. You've been so distant lately, always busy with your own stuff. I needed, attention." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how insane that sounded. But I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, feeling completely powerless. Over the next few days, Jess kept spinning her web of lies. Every time I tried to talk to her about what had happened, she'd downplay it or outright deny certain things, making me question my own reality. I could tell she was lying. I had seen the texts. I knew exactly what had been going on, but somehow, she made it sound like I was overreacting. "It was just sex, Mike," she'd say, like that was supposed to make me feel better. It didn't mean anything. It's not like I was planning to leave you or anything. The casual way she talked about it drove me crazy. Like cheating on your husband was something people did every day, no big deal. And she kept blaming me, saying that I hadn't been paying enough attention to her, that I'd let the spark die between us. It wasn't true. I had tried to make things work. I did everything I could to be a good husband. But no matter how much I said that, she always found a way to twist it, to make it sound like it was my fault that she'd ended up in someone else's bed. It was like living in some kind of alternate reality where none of this made sense. Jess wasn't even apologetic. In fact, she got defensive every time I brought it up. At one point, she even accused me of cheating on her. "Why are you so obsessed with what I did?" she asked one night. "Are you feeling guilty about something? Is there someone else you haven't told me about?" I couldn't believe it. She was turning the tables, trying to make me the bad guy. I hadn't even looked at another woman since we'd gotten married. The audacity of her accusations hit me like a ton of bricks. That's when I started to realize something. Jess wasn't just lying. She was trying to manipulate me, to make me doubt myself, to make me feel like I was the one who had done something wrong. And it was working. Part of me started questioning if maybe I was to blame, if maybe I hadn't been enough for her. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. No matter how hard she tried to twist things, the fact remained. She was the one who had betrayed me. I hit my breaking point about a week after the confrontation. The tension in the house was unbearable. Every time I looked at her, all I could think about were those messages. I couldn't shake the image of her with someone else, laughing, kissing him, having sex with him. It haunted me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything. One night, after yet another argument about the affair, I snapped. I don't even remember what set me off, but suddenly, I found myself yelling at her. All the anger and frustration that I'd been bottling up coming out at once. "Why can't you just admit that you fucked up?" I shouted. "Why can't you just say you're sorry and stop pretending like this is all my fault?" Jess rolled her eyes. "I've already told you, Mike. I'm sorry. But you're the one who can't let it go. Because you don't mean it, Jess." I was practically shaking. "You don't even care that you hurt me. All you care about is making excuses." She stared at me for a moment, her face blank. Then she said something that shattered whatever was left of my hope for our marriage. "Maybe you should grow up, Mike. It's just sex. It's not the end of the world." That was it. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay in this marriage. She didn't care. She didn't care about me, about our life together, about the fact that she had broken my trust in the worst way possible. To her, it was just some fling, nothing more. But to me, it was everything. After that night, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living like this, walking on eggshells around her, trying to pretend like we could somehow fix things. There was no fixing this. Not when she didn't even care about what she'd done. I spent a couple of days in a fog, barely functioning. I went to work, came home, went through the motions, but my mind was somewhere else. I kept thinking about our marriage, about the good times, trying to figure out where things had gone so horribly wrong. I thought about the early years, when we were so in love, when I couldn't imagine my life without her. We used to talk about everything, our future, our dreams, what kind of house we'd buy when we had enough money saved up. She was my best friend, but somewhere along the way, things changed. I don't know if it was her ambition, her drive to succeed, or if I just wasn't enough for her anymore. Maybe it was a combination of things. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was that I couldn't stay. I couldn't keep pretending like I could live with what she had done. I wasn't that kind of guy, so I made my decision. I was going to leave. It was one of the hardest choices I've ever had to make, but I knew it was the right one. I couldn't keep sacrificing my own happiness just to stay in a marriage that had clearly run its course. The night I told Jess I was leaving was a disaster, as you can probably imagine. I'd rehearsed what I was going to say in my head 100 times, but when the moment came, none of it went the way I'd planned. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. It pissed me off, honestly. How could she just go on with her life like everything was fine? Like our marriage wasn't crumbling around us? I took a deep breath and walked into the living room, standing in front of her. "We need to talk." She looked up, raising an eyebrow. "What now?" "I'm leaving, Jess." I didn't beat around the bush. There was no point anymore. "I can't do this anymore." Her face changed. For the first time since this whole thing started, I saw a flicker of real emotion, panic. What? You're leaving? You're seriously going to throw away our marriage over this? I couldn't believe the audacity. Over this? Like she hadn't completely destroyed everything we had. Yeah, I am. You cheated on me, Jess. You lied to me. And you don't even care. I can't stay with someone who doesn't respect me. She stood up, crossing her arms defensively. You're being ridiculous. It was a stupid mistake. People move on from this kind of thing all the time. Not me, I said, my voice steady. I can't just move on. This isn't something I can forgive. Her eyes narrowed. So what? You're just going to leave me? After everything we've been through? I looked at her, feeling the weight of the last 6 years pressing down on me. Yes, I am. After I told her I was leaving, everything escalated. Jess didn't take it well. She tried to guilt-trip me, throwing everything she could at me to make me feel like the bad guy. Do you even realize what you're doing? She screamed at one point. You're throwing away everything we've built together because of one mistake. One. I never even loved him. It wasn't serious. I stayed calm. I had to because if I didn't, I was going to lose it. It doesn't matter if you loved him or not, Jess. You broke my trust, and I can't stay in a marriage without trust. She didn't have anything to say to that. She just stood there, staring at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. I think she finally understood that I was serious, that I was really leaving. After that, things got messy. She started crying, begging me to stay, saying she'd do anything to fix it. But it was too late. She didn't get it. This wasn't something she could just fix with a few tears and promises that I didn't leave right away. It took a few days to figure things out. I wanted to do it right, to be as fair as possible. We sat down and talked about how we were going to split everything, the house, the dogs, our savings. It was awkward as hell, but we kept it civil, or at least as civil as you can be when your marriage is ending because your wife cheated on you. I moved into a friend's place while we sorted out the logistics. It felt weird, like I was in limbo. Part of me still couldn't believe this was happening. I was a married man one day, and the next, I was crashing on Dan's couch, trying to figure out what my life was going to look like now. Leaving Jess didn't magically make everything better. It wasn't like I woke up the next day and suddenly felt free. If anything, the emotional fallout hit me harder after I left. There were days when I missed her so much it physically hurt. Despite everything she'd done, there was still a part of me that loved her, that missed the life we had. But then there were days when I felt nothing but anger. I'd replay our fights in my head, thinking about all the lies she told, all the time she gaslit me, and I'd get so furious I could barely see straight. It was a constant back and forth between missing her and hating her, between feeling like I'd made the right decision and wondering if I'd thrown away something that could have been fixed. I'd like to say I bounced back quickly, but the truth is it took a long time for me to heal. I had to relearn how to be on my own, how to build a life without Jess in it. I went to therapy, talked to my friends more, and slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Looking back, I realized that our marriage had been broken long before the affair. The affair was just the final nail in the coffin. Maybe we could have saved it at some point, but by the time everything came to light, it was too late. I wasn't perfect, and I'll admit that maybe I wasn't as attentive as I could have been, but I wasn't responsible for her cheating. That was on her. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that trust is everything. Once it's broken, it's damn near impossible to fix. And if your partner isn't even willing to own up to their mistakes, there's no point in trying to make it work. My advice to anyone who's going through something similar: trust your gut. Don't let yourself be manipulated or gaslit into thinking you're the problem when you're not. You deserve someone who respects you and values your relationship. If they can't give you that, it's better to walk away, no matter how hard it might be. I walked away, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But in the end, it was the right decision.